Hey everyone, this is our first lesson for systematic review. Just a brief introduction to systematic review and meta-analysis. These are the learning outcomes for this lesson. At the end of the session, the students or the participants will be able to first differentiate narrative reviews, systematic reviews, and meta-analysis. Second, discuss the advantages of using meta-analysis over narrative reviews. And third, discuss the applications of meta-analysis and the circumstances wherein you cannot use meta-analysis. We also have a special recording in this video on systematic analysis or systematic reviews itself. We usually do synthesis of studies. We've heard this under our lesson on review of related literature. So this is when you synthesize the studies, you combine results of more than one study. So this is to find average or common effect across studies. What is that they saw commonly? To understand the results in any study in the context of all other studies, if there are those studies that have the same results or those studies that have different results from the other studies, and to determine the consistency of the intervention effect. So ultimately, we synthesize studies to help develop evidence-based practice and to highlight need for further research. You can see there what are the gaps. Let's explore the different types of study synthesis methods. We have narrative review, systematic review, and meta-analysis. Our narrative review here provides a broad overview of a specific topic or issue. So it is typically descriptive and is based on the author's interpretation of the available literature. Narrative reports or narrative reviews are not bound by strict methods, so they can include a wide variety of sources, just like in your review of related literature. However, this flexibility often means that they lack transparency or reproducibility. There's no strict method on how you do a narrative review. However, they are useful for summarizing general trends, but not for answering specific research questions in a structured way. In comparison, we have this systematic review. So from the name itself, it is systematic. There is a flow. There is a method. So systematic review, on the other hand, is a comprehensive and rigorous approach to synthesizing studies. So it follows a predefined methodology to identify, select, and critically appraise all the relevant research on a specific question. So not just looking at all the related studies on a certain topic, but here you have a predefined methodology. Hence, systematic reviews ensure objectivity and reproducibility by documenting every step of the process. So from step 1, including search criteria, the inclusion and exclusion criteria, and how you extracted data, the data extraction methods. These are all documented, so it is replicable. This type of review minimizes bias and provides a reliable summary of the evidence. So this is already good. How about meta-analysis? So meta-analysis goes a step further than systematic review. Usually, we call systematic review the qualitative systematic review and meta-analysis the quantitative systematic review because it goes a step further than systematic review by statistically combining data from multiple studies, including. So let's just highlight each of these types of synthesis reviews. So for the narrative review, it's synthesizing the results of multiple studies of the same topic. So we perform this for all research studies as part of the review of literature. So this can lead an investigator to a conclusion regarding the treatment effect. However, as said a while back, it has several limitations. It is not objective. So subjectivity in which studies to be included and which studies to emphasize. Just like when you did your RRL, you just had studies from a certain database, and it's up to you which studies you included. So there's no specific point in which an intervention can already be concluded as effective. So this narrative review becomes less useful as new information becomes available and as studies become more varied. On the other hand, your systematic review, it's a comprehensive review of all relevant individual studies, meaning you've checked all individual studies and you are just specific for a particular clinical or health-related topic or question. So the difference between the narrative review and systematic review is mainly the systematic methodology from the name itself, systematic, and the exhaustive search of records. So systematic because you have a clear and transparent criteria for literature search, specific only for your research question. So, and the way or the method you selected the studies to be included in the review. So again, here in the systematic review, you've included all of the studies pertaining to your topic, and then you selected or you have a criteria which of those will be included in the review. Analysis, just like what I've said, it's a quantitative systematic review because we use statistical analysis already of a large collection of analysis results from the individual studies for the purpose of integrating the findings. So the end output here for meta-analysis is an average or summary effect size. So you have also statistics for meta-analysis compared to your qualitative systematic review where you don't have statistical analysis. Again, it can be done narratively or qualitatively and can be done statistically or quantitatively. So together, they provide stronger evidence than any one alone. So you can do both narrative and then extend to statistical. So usually these are considered an evidence-based resource. This figure here represents the hierarchy of evidence commonly used in evidence-based practice and research. So it categorizes types of evidence based on their strength and reliability in supporting conclusions in healthcare and related disciplines. So you can see here you have the base of the pyramid, background information or expert opinion. This is the least reliable evidence. So it can include textbooks, expert opinions, narrative reviews, and it can provide foundational knowledge, but it is often considered the least reliable because they lack systematic evaluation, which is prone to bias. So our middle levels, which is the moderate reliability, we have here our case control studies, case series. We have our cohort studies also, our mid, and also your RCTs or randomized controlled trials. And the top level here, you will see this is the list talked about types of uh, uh, types of evidences when we talk about research or thesis, not just because it is not done, but because it is a new way of doing research. So you have here the top levels, critically appraised individual articles and topics, and systematic reviews, and the highest is your meta-analysis. So for your filtered and unfiltered, meaning unfiltered, you have a raw data requiring interpretation. Here, our usual way of primary data collection, it's a raw data requiring interpretation. The upper levels here provide filtered information. It offers pre-synthesized and evaluated evidence for easier application in practice. So your pyramid here emphasizes the importance of accessing evidence through reputable databases. So where will I look for data? So you have reputable databases such as PubMed, Cochrane Library to ensure. Then what's the difference between systematic review and meta-analysis? Systematic review, you review all the related literatures, but there is a system. That's why method is very important in systematic review, the data extraction. Your meta-analysis is the quantitative systematic review. So you do still what is done in systematic review, but you will incorporate numbers. There are numbers that you are looking for in each of the studies that you will be including in your review. And then the endpoint here is one common number or the effect of this review. Then, for evidence-based, it's better to do a meta-analysis within a systematic review. So we go away from narrative synthesis of results. This graph shows us the increasing popularity of systematic reviews and meta-analysis over time. Why do we have to synthesize statistically? So the process is more objective if we do synthesize statistically. So we use the results from statistical computations. And we weigh assigned to each study are based on mathematical criteria. So we don't just look into the studies themes alone, but their statistical criteria. So the final output here is a numerical summary effect size. So either you combine or combined and weighted mean of the effect sizes found in individual studies, and this can be more objectively interpreted than a narrative synthesis. So for example, you have odds ratio or risk ratio of this in one study, and a similar study did this and it got another finding. It had another odds ratio, and another study in another country but a different odds ratio. So it's objectively interpreted. And here we can synthesize the effect measures from different studies. So why do we perform a meta-analysis? First, to increase power. So power is the chance of detecting a real effect as statistically significant. We are not just concluding. However, so we detect a real effect as statistically significant if it exists. And many individual studies are too small to detect small effects, leading to the impression that the studies have conflicting results. So when several studies are combined, there is a higher chance of detecting an effect. For example, 20 studies were done with association of smoking and lung cancer, positive association. However, there are 5 studies that says that there is no association. So when we combine this together, you will see the effect size. You will see if there is really a statistical significant effect. So this is an example of meta-analysis where they have all these studies and then they took the risk ratio and then the p-value if it's statistically significant, and they took the sample size. So imagine in one of your studies, you only have, for example, 23 respondents. So if you combine all this together, you have seemingly several respondents. And then you take the risk ratio and confidence interval. This is how the plot of meta-analysis looks like. So we perform meta-analysis to estimate the effect size. It allows us a computation of a summary, not just whether it is significant or not. To improve precision, for example, especially for intervention studies, the estimation of an intervention effect can be improved when it is based on more information. That's why the more the merrier. Mas maraming participants, the better. So here, mas maraming gumawa ng studies, mas maraming participants, mas maraming countries involved. So it is for improved precision. Next is to settle controversies arising from conflicting studies, just like the example a while back. You have one study that says that there is an association between smoking and lung cancer, and other study says that there is no association between smoking and lung cancer. So here, it may allow generalization of results if consistent, and may allow investigation of heterogeneity if inconsistent. So when should you not perform meta-analysis? You will not perform meta-analysis. It's not performed when you combine apples and oranges. Apples and oranges meaning one study did another intervention and the other study made a different intervention. So you cannot combine those together. Combining studies with highly different comparators or highly different population groups. So you cannot combine those studies together. So in terms of outcomes, some can be converted to the same measure. For example, others measured fat or body fat percentage using a different tool. And another study, they also computed for fat percentage, but they use a different device. So this, you still can convert that to the same measure. But if, for example, the other study used fat percentage as a measure, the other group used BMI. So that is completely different things. So you cannot combine apples and oranges to perform meta-analysis. When to perform meta-analysis, garbage in, garbage out. So you cannot put in low quality studies because if you put in more low quality studies, the bias is higher. So when low quality studies or studies with bias are included, the result of the meta-analysis is doubtful. So sayang lang yung ginawang meta-analysis. If you already know that this study, it seems like there's bias. So you remove that from the pool of studies that you've added so that you have a better output for meta-analysis. Also, you don't perform meta-analysis if there are very few studies available. So if there's only one or two studies available on a certain topic, you cannot pull those quantitative results. So statistically pooling results of student studies will be invalid and misleading. That's not meta-analysis. If you've seen the table a while back, you have several studies there and they have several p-values that we can compare and contrast, and then we can summarize. So how many studies are needed for a meta-analysis? There's no specific number, but it is very sure that you cannot pool or you cannot have a summary for two studies only. You don't also perform a meta-analysis if there's a file drawer problem, meaning there is a significant reporting bias. So the power of the p-value in publishing studies and may not represent the actual effect being examined. This is somehow related to the bias talked about a while ago, the garbage in, garbage out. You also don't perform a meta-analysis if what you think that it is an easy research to do. So we will not be doing meta-analysis for now. We will be doing the qualitative systematic review, not this quantitative systematic review, but similarly, it is not an easy research to do. You still have to do data extraction, you still have to analyze. So we are learning these systematic reviews and meta-analysis because uh, not only because there are those groups who are already on internship and they cannot do primary data collection, but also for the rest of the groups, for the whole class, to learn what are these systematic reviews or meta-analysis. Because if you will go to medical school, for example, or have uh, further studies after you graduate, this may be the trend already of doing research, not already the survey questionnaires or doing statistics or doing experiments, but this systematic review or meta-analysis. For me, I've learned this systematic review and meta-analysis during the pandemic because you cannot do primary data collection on research. So we are forced to learn doing systematic review or meta-analysis from secondary data, from what is already available in literatures. So like other research studies, it requires detailed planning and significant resources. Also, that's why I'm making this lecture for now, just an addition to the lessons that we had for research writing because it requires training and expertise. So for the review process, for the systematic review, we will learn this step by step. This is just an introduction, but this is a summary of what we will be doing. You identify the issue and determine the question. So you will actually convert your paper to systematic review. So you already have the issue, the topic on hand, you already have the research questions. After that, you write a plan for the review. You have a protocol on how you will do the review. And then that's the only time you search for studies. So when you search for studies, you will sort this. You will sift and select studies, extract data from the studies, assess the quality of the studies, combine the data, you will synthesize or do some meta-analysis, and then same as your thesis, you discuss and conclude overall findings. So you have already there a systematic review. The most important part that differs your usual um, qualitative or quantitative studies is this part of um, the process. You plan for the review. How will you do it? So usually for a review process, you have a minimum of content experts. So two reviewers, one tiebreaker. That's why when you will do this, if you are three in a group, you do this separately. You don't ask one person to do, for example, you search under PubMed, the other one you search under Google Scholar, the other one will search under Scopus. So you do that those actually separately so that we can see if it is replicable. You will boil down to the same number of um, studies to include in your paper. For example, it's initially 1,500. Then after sifting or sorting, it becomes 50 studies. That is what happens under systematic review. If you are doing a meta-analysis, you will be needing one statistician, one that is trained under meta-analysis, not just any other statistician. You ask if they know how to analyze for meta-analysis, because you will be having a forest plot, effect size, and also here one or more information professional. So if you have a librarian trained in systematic reviews, you will ask for their help. So for the review process, the protocol describes in advance the rationale, the hypothesis, and the methods you plan to use in your review. That's why it's called systematic review. This is what you have that differs from any other quantitative and qualitative studies. So this is a way to minimize the potential for bias in the review process by making the methods to be used transparent and documented in advance. So I will show you later on sample systematic review papers so that you will see there how they show transparency of their protocol. So format depends on where protocol will be registered. Later, you will see where these are registered. So here, this is protocol registration, just like for RCTs. This creates an additional layer of transparency to avoid bias during subjective decisions in the review. So how can you say that this is effective or this is not effective? One intervention. So you need to show transparency. You cannot just claim that this is effective. This is an effective intervention. You need to show transparency. So you can register and publicize your protocol under Cochrane database for systematic reviews, Prospero, and Open Science Framework. So this is actually your first task for today. Not for today. Later on, when you're done with your protocol, to register it and have it publicized. Inserted a clip of the recording from the academy that I've attended to further my knowledge on systematic reviews and meta-analysis. So this is their introduction. They highlighted here the importance of a systematic literature reviews, the same as your systematic review.
The most important part,
the fundamentals of the systematic literature review.
Why systematic literature review is very important. And why nowadays many researchers, especially the professors, they are focusing on writing more on systematic literature review rather than writing on any other format of paper. Remember, the systematic literature review, irrespective of the area, the discipline you are in, the field of your study, you can do in any field of research. We can focus on systematic literature review. So that's why it make it very simple and very good writing technique. So let's see, there are 5 major reasons why we start with the systematic literature review. Basically, it is used to map the existing knowledge. Initially, it was started from medical sciences, where we want to see the treatments of particular disease and the consistency of the treatments within the different countries, how they treat that and what is the results. And then they can find out the optimum solution for any type of disease or cure for any form of disease. But later on, this concept was expanded to all other fields. Now, no field is, I think, no field is irrelevant to this systematic literature review processes. So any type of literature review or any type of field can be good for systematic literature review. Remember the first part for the importance. I'll just take your 5 to 10 minutes, and then we move quickly towards the practice session. So let's move. The second major reason why we conduct the systematic literature review, because it follows a scientific method, a rigorous method. There are steps you need to follow. And it is a very scientific way to conduct any study, the way we do quantitative research. The practice or similar tools or similar platform can be applied to systematic literature review. Although some of the parts are different, but the scientific method is same. Each research article or published paper would be considered your data point, so we can work with the data. So we can include this quantitative methodology within the review process. So that's why it is very important. I'm not going to take you to the steps or theoretical foundations of the systematic literature review process. This workshop would be more on practical, how you are going to conduct your research. So that's why I will go through these systematic scientific methodological processes, and I'll try to teach you step by step and with the practice. So be ready, prepare your laptops and follow my steps once we are on the practice session. Okay, so it follows the scientific methodology, and nowadays with the available databases and also with the tools available for literature review and tools available for data analysis and tool available for text mining, we can do systematic literature review very quickly. So that is added benefit for doing systematic literature review process or systematic literature review papers. And fortunately, this form of research article, it is easy to publish. If you have conducted a good literature review, you can find out any good journal who can publish your systematic literature review process. And nowadays, being an editor, I know most of the journal, they encourage to write at least one systematic literature review per issue. Means that if any journal is publishing any issue, at least one paper would be from systematic literature review. So that gives us opportunity to write more, and we can get it published easily. So this is another opportunity for systematic literature review, why it is important. And finally, the mostly cited papers nowadays are systematic literature reviews. So if you follow correct methodology, if you follow all the steps available for systematic literature review, you can get your work published easily. At the same time, you can have highly cited publications. So means that any work in the particular area would cite your work because you have included all the relevant studies in your research. So that's why your work is more visible and it would be highly cited. So that's why it is very important for all of us, because we know writing is our job, and obviously if you are writing, the citation is one of the major factor we focus on during the research. So that's why highly cited papers are more systematic literature review. So that's why I encourage you to write more on systematic literature review. Okay, this is the fundamentals of systematic literature review. Remember, when you are writing systematic literature review, we need to start some point, and that point is asking a question, a research question. Always start your systematic literature review with a very clear research question. Don't include many of the variables in one go, like moderator, mediator, or many concepts. You cannot add many of these concepts in one literature review process. So if you want to include more variables, you need to conduct more literature reviews. Not one literature review is suitable for all. So focus on limited things. Start with a very clear question. Let me give you one example. My area is sustainable manufacturing. I'm interested to see the current practices of sustainable manufacturing in the industry. So that is very clear question. I'm trying to map what available practices are there to reduce the carbon emission, to secure the societal protection, and also at the lowest possible cost, mean the economic side. So mean that my question is very clear. What are the current practices of sustainable manufacturing in the industry for nowadays? So that is in manufacturing industry. That is very clear question. So what is your question? Please think. You have to come up with one question, because without that we cannot proceed further. Otherwise it would be difficult for you to understand what is happening there. So please be clear with your question and try to think and try to start. I will give you 5 minutes after this slide. You can just think on your research question and post on the comment, so I can check and I can give you some feedback if it is relevant, and I can pick some example. But everyone, you must need to start with the research question, and that research question would be very clear and not including so much many variable, maybe on one variable, one concept, one construct, or maximum if you want to do one relationship. The impact of COVID on economic growth, the impact of particular medicine on behavior, impact of salary on satisfaction. So mean that you need to focus on one relationship or one construct. If the studies are more toward the scientific, just focus on one method. More on engineering side, if you are from engineering background or other background. So just focus on one experiment, one type of experiment, one field, or one construct, one relationship. Okay. So this is the limitations on systematic literature review process. Okay, clear? So I hope everyone understands this concept. So start your research question, ask yourself some research question which you are interested to find out, and do not include many variables, just one variable or maybe one relationship for the basics of systematic literature review. Okay. So let's start. I'm just giving you 5 minutes to check, to think, and post your research question in the comment box. But remember, the research question should be very clear, to the point, not including many variables. Just focus on one variable or one relation at a time. Okay. So just wait for 2 minutes. Everybody can post your.
You start with your existing proposal. What is your research question? And what is your title? So now you make that clear. We have it under your activity. Number 3, what is your research question now for your systematic review? So based on your existing proposal or title. So for this day, you have 4. This is not 3. You have 4 things to do. First, what is the difference between the narrative review, systematic review, and meta-analysis? We had it at the start of this lecture. Second, why is systematic literature review important? So this is based from this lecture. Third, what are the fundamentals of systematic literature review? Also based from this lecture. And finally, what is your research question? We will be needing this for the next lecture. We will be starting with your tentative research question. So that's it for the introduction on systematic review. I would like to acknowledge the use of this book by Ma'am Ko, Introduction to Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis from the Department of Epidemiology and Biostatistics in the College of Public Health, University of the Philippines, Manila. And you also have these references. If you have time, you can browse these references also. Thank you for watching.